There you go. Howdy. Welcome back to Lumberjack Landlord.
See, we're live. It just worked then. It's crazy. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord, here with his good buddy Dion Talk Financial Freedom. And we will have Millennial Mike joining us shortly as soon as he learns how to tell time and keep an appointment. But that being said, Dion, what's going on, my friend? How's your beautiful all cash purchased house hack?
Well, it's just ironic because I make so many jokes about Dave Ramsey and how saving all cash and or the large down payment will delay people's investing. And there are people out there who can't process. One, it's humor. Two, I'm not growing towards financial freedom. We're trying to grow a portfolio, right? The person who's just starting out that saves the down payment or saves to buy cash and puts as much down as possible is delaying the purchase so much they might not actually make the purchase. But my purchase is going well. Contrary to the lazy, I was actually out doing physical labor yesterday, ripping out carpets. Demo is fun, so I don't call that work.
I wanted to list something and go, please don't hurt yourself or something like that. But, you know, you're in better shape than me, so I couldn't really say that.
If there's a way to hurt myself, I'm going to find it.
Yeah. I tend to get what's called over enthusiastic with tools, you know, that's what happens to the best of us. But yeah, I mean, do you want to talk? So yesterday you were ripped up carpet, you ripped up tack strips.
Mm-hmm.
You sent me, quite honestly, one of the best installed floors I've ever seen. That was downright impressive. I do.
There's a meme that goes around often that shows LVP flooring all put in a straight line and saying, when you know somebody who could do it cheaper. Well, I actually have a unit. That's how they put it in.
Holy crap. That's how they put it in. They literally linked boards and basically did straight across. And then they did it again after that. Like,
and again, and again, and again.
Yeah. And again, and that's awesome.
That's a pro job right there.
That's so awesome.
And I don't know that I'll be reusing that. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to buy new stuff because that's it's in good shape. I'm going to throw it away and get
just take it when you take it apart. So for those of you who don't know, so that's some flooring that Dion has in his new burr, and the flooring looks like it's in good shape. And if they didn't glue it down, and all they did was click it into each other, try to unclick it. If it unclicks and you don't have any of the click part broken, you can reuse those pieces.
I was impressed when I got in there and saw that.
Dude, when you sent me that, I thought you were messing with me.
No, that's the actual video of me going in. That's the same floor.
I was literally like, Dion literally had to go out and find a picture of the worst installed floor I've ever seen to then send it to me and go, see, I am going to use the stuff that was in your course. And I was going to be like, okay. So I thought you were totally setting me up. And then you were like, no, that's real. And I was like, stop it. I was like, hey, that flooring is still in halfway decent shape. Like, because the sad thing is some people, they follow part of the instructions and they'll actually glue that down after they install it like that. And like, yeah, it doesn't move. Well, yeah, no shit. Glue, make sure stuff doesn't move. The problem is you installed it wrong. So it's going to be a problem forever. But yeah, that was awesome. And then thanks, Dave K. You're welcome. And appreciate you watching. He said he loves our content. I mean, I can't blame him. It's like truly the most entertaining and fun stuff on the internet. It's legal. But I'm not sharing my project yet, but Dion knows a little bit about it. Mike knows a little bit about it. So I don't know, but I feel like that's going to be my coolest project ever.
I do like that there are some rooms ready for me and Mike to stay in when we come to visit.
Yeah, so we're not revealing what this purchase is because I am under contract, but much like Dion, I like talking about things after they're closed and everything is all said and done. But we should be closing in a couple of weeks. And yeah, it's my coolest, greatest, most amazing project I think I've ever done. So I'm very excited to purchase it, start it, and I think it might be my best. I think it might be my best deal ever. I think it might be my best deal ever. So we'll see.
I'm with you on not talking about things till it closes. There's a lot of slips twixt a cup and a lip, right? I mean, so not that you're going to jinx it, but things can change. I mean, you might find
Sure.
something in inspection or something that you know, the title could find a lien that you don't know about. There could be something coming up. Or, as in my case, I found a deal that sat on the market for a long time,
Yep.
had what I'm going to call a mentally challenged listing agent that used bad pictures, described it poorly. You couldn't even tell it was a duplex. You couldn't tell it had separate meters. You couldn't tell there are 2 addresses. You couldn't tell anything about this property that made it worth buying. And then I get it under contract and I talk about it and I point all this out. And so original list price was $477. They dropped to $444. I could tell this person is thinking in numbers, like something with numbers matters to this person more than the math of how much they need. They're thinking in the way the numbers look. So I offered 400,000, a nice round number. They countered with 422. So they're literally cutting their offer in half of mine, meeting me in the middle. I stayed at 400,000. We go under contract. If I started pointing out, here's the address, here's the town, here's the listing number, any one of 1,000 investors in this area or from anywhere could have called and offered that seller 10 grand more and they would have taken it. Seller was under no other than feeling to take my offer. They could have backed out at any point in time. But once it's closed, I'm going to share everything now. So
yeah, it's going to be an awesome project. Josh Burdick asks a really good question. Did you purchase a brothel? They are illegal in New Hampshire. I
there's
wouldn't
a lot
be,
of things that are illegal.
There's true.
It's still buy.
I would consider it if the numbers worked. I would consider it, but I would not take trade for rent. I think that would be frowned upon in the Hawkins family household. But yeah, I think this project that I was on, or this deal that I was on, it came from just doing the work daily. Doing the work daily. This thing was on the market for literally a few days. And so it was one that I had honestly missed. It was in a specific type of search that for some reason I didn't have. My agent had it. He sent it to me. We looked at it later that day. We had an offer in later that night. And then we got notified within 24 hours that we won the bid. Talk about a due diligence show. Like, holy Toledo. We had 24 hours. I called, thank God for my network, because I called everybody. I'm literally doing a video. When we do that, I'm doing a video on what I had to do in my network to get the answers that I needed in order to write a good proposal. But yeah, more than just a little bit scary. One of the things that I've been seeing, a lot about is bidding wars heating up again. And so why do you think that the deal that you got, with it being over 100 days, right? It was over 100, right? So the deal that you got with it being over 100 days, have you thoughts? Feel like, why did it last that long?
So it needed work. One side's a complete rehab, right? So that eliminated all of your FHA, VA, conventional owner-occupied lenders that don't know about 203K, don't know about DSCR, asset-based, all of the other, seller financing probably wasn't an option. So a little more research that I'm probably going to put into a video sometime. So this is a gold nugget that's very specific to this case. So it's not something I would teach as like, here's how you invest in real estate. But I reached out to utility companies to check, is this separate gas metered? Is this separate electric metered? Do you have two addresses recorded here? And they said gas company. And a great, it's not HIPAA violation because it's not health, but violation of personal space, said, oh, we closed service there in February because of non-payment. Oh, so there's a money issue here. So I'm going to stand firm on the offer that I'm making. This person needs the money. They're going to If they came back and they said, look, we need $407,000 to take out of exactly and walk away without spending money, I would have adjusted my price. But they countered it, they met me in the middle at 444 to 422, and I stayed at 4. I knew I had the power.
Yeah.
That little extra knowledge. So that's one of the reasons why it's sad is it needed work and you eliminated a lot of the buyers. And then it was just listed horribly. It looked like a single family house that was overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
Probably priced close to correct, but needed too much work.
Yeah.
As a duplex in this area with water views,
views awesome.
I probably got a 40% less than what it could have went for if the investors in the area were paying attention. Agreed.
Yeah, one of the properties that we went and looked at last week was they had posted a property, and again, it was an agent mistake. They posted the property. It said something to the effect of farmhouse with apartments. And it wasn't a farmhouse with apartments. It was apartments in a farmhouse. And so it was an interesting property, but as we walked the property, they're like, yeah, well, there's some issues. And I was like, some issues? Like, you can tell there's carry beams in the basement that are rotted because they're coming through the floor 2 feet. Like, there was one area where it was literally like the deviation from one side of the house to the other was almost 2 feet. Like, it's bad. And I was like, well, structurally, this house is unsound. It's not going to pass any inspection. You need a cash buyer. He's like, well, yeah, we're working with an estate and they already turned down this number, like just ballpark. And I was like, they're fools. They need to take that number because the number's that far off. Now, that property, if you want to put, you're buying that property for probably $600,000, let's say, and you're probably putting 300 into it. But you're into it for 9. And when it's all said and done, it's probably worth $1 million too. It's on like 9 acres. It's in a desirable town. Like, it's got all those things. But again, glad that somebody that knew the family was the one who they had listed. Completely very nice lady. I'm sure she's a nice agent, but this is a property that needs a very specific agent that actually thought of doing like a pre-inspection and thought of actually having reports that could be there for people. So that's going to drastically reduce the amount of due diligence time that any buyer is going to need to do. And when you have a house with a story, you really need to do that due diligence for them, provide them the data from a third party so you yourself can properly set your own expectations. Because the fact that they were thinking that they could get 7 or 8 or 9 for this property is complete delusion. No one is going to buy a property that's that big of a project with 0 upside to themselves. No one's going to do that. So, so I think that Dion's point's correct. Make sure you're doing the work. I bought a house that was a single family that was zoned as a duplex, and they just had such a big family that they basically tore through the upstairs wall and they made it a single family. It was a 2,500 square foot single family house in a neighborhood that is all multifamily. Why didn't anybody spend any time digging deep into what that asset is and understanding? I bought that asset for $160,000, about 60 or 70 grand less than what I or any other investor at the time would have paid for it. Now it's worth 350, but still, I would have paid that much more money for it back then. And it was all because it was being marketed as a single family house, and no single family wanted to be in that neighborhood that was all multi. Nobody wanted to be in that neighborhood and have a 2,500 square foot house. And then people stopped doing the math and started thinking, hey, listen, maybe I should be looking at the square footage. I looked at the square footage and I was like, there's no way somebody built a 2,600 or 2,500 square foot single family in that neighborhood. There's just no way. So sure enough, I do the research. I'm like, oh my word, this is actually a duplex. I bought it as a single family for 160 grand. I put one wall in, just one. It turns back to a duplex because it's already zoned duplex. It was already a duplex in the past, in the early 80s. Make that one shift, that one change. I buy that for 160. I put 35 into it. I'm into it for 195. And now that building makes $3,300 a month on a mortgage of 18. That one duplex makes $1,500 a month in a low income non-impressive area.
And of course, we hear people say that you shouldn't buy because property values are going to drop and you're not going to find deals today.
Yeah. I keep on hearing that.
Right. I kind of enjoy hearing that. It helps eliminate some of the competition. There's those people that sit on the sidelines. There are people like REI stoners, moved to another state, increased income, decreased expenses, saved up, built their team. They have agents they're working with, lenders they're working with, have been making offers. They're under contract finally on their first one. Again, I don't think they're going to share many details because they're under contract and a lot of things can fall apart there.
Yeah.
But the numbers they shared with me sound like a killer deal.
That's awesome.
I'm hoping people understand that pretty much for my entire life, every adult when I was young and coworkers and friends and family when I was growing, older, has thought it was the wrong time to buy. Every day, there's a reason why this is the wrong time to buy.
Right. Yep, I agree. I wanted to share something that I thought people might get a kick out of. Dion, I'm not sure how often this happens to you. Do you get solicited much for your existing properties to sell them?
A few calls a week, if not a
Yes.
day. And I
Yes.
just reply with Ron McNeely, please contact this number and give him my ex's number.
I thought that's still how you're doing that.
Mhm.
So I had gotten one, and if wholesalers are on this call, they're probably not going to like that I did this, but I don't really give an F. So tough. Let's see here. Yes. It was very interesting to me having this conversation. Let's see, where is it? Where'd it go? I basically got this email or this text message, right? That's my favorite. So here's how it basically went. Good day. Good day. It's Kate asking you about this and this property. Would you consider to hear an offer from us? Yes, I would. I said it's a 6-unit, 4 2-beds and 2 1-beds. Great. Can I ask a few questions about it so that we can get back to you with an offer? Like, what's the general condition of it? 5 units all rehabbed, only 1 unit is dated. All others have been done in the last 4 years when I bought it. It's one of the 1-beds that wasn't updated. Oh, okay. Thanks for the info. All our units rented out. Yes. How much does it typically rent for? You're trying to buy the property. How do you not know what typical rents are? So I said, it's about $9,000 a month. Okay. And aside from us reaching out to you, do you happen to have any specific reason why you consider an offer on it? Because I'll always listen to an offer. Your turn. I see. So if we came up with something favorable for you, how soon can you sell? Anytime. All right. Do you have a ballpark price in mind? Nope. You called me. You're trying to buy my property. I don't have a price in mind. Sure. No worries. What's a good time to give you a call? My answer back, I'm not interested in the call. I gave you the info you needed to make an offer if you want to make an offer. I have nothing else. I just tracked her line of questioning. That's all. Don't text me and tell me you want to give me an offer. And then at the end, say, I want a phone call. And don't ask me all those questions.
So there's probably a 90% likelihood you're talking to a wholesaler's virtual assistant.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right.
Absolutely. And so, but this is where technology doesn't meet the human need, because there were many cues that I gave in that, which were kind of F off. Like, yeah, if you want to make me an offer, make me an offer. Fine. Sounds good. Go ahead. Make me an offer. But I'm not going to do any work for you to make me an offer. You do the work to make me an offer. When I call somebody and say, hey, I was looking at your property, would love to sit down and have a conversation with you about it, or would you be interested in selling? If they say yes, then I've already got all the data and I'm just asking follow-up confirming questions. And if they say, no, I wasn't really thinking about a number, just say, well, would you like me to make you an offer? That's a conversation. That's the one, right? I mean,
You
like,
have to remember, wholesalers aren't looking for somebody who knows the value of what they have.
oh, 100%. They are absolutely trying to create margin for themselves by talking to the uninformed. Somebody that bought the house 40 years ago and thinks that I literally had a seller say to me, well, I mean, I bought it like 15 years ago for 80,000. I figure it's worth at least 110 now. My answer to them, I mean, I think I can work with that number.
Yeah.
I think I can work with, and so I said, it's going to need to appraise out, but I think I can work with that number. It appraises out. We work with that number. And yeah, now that property is worth, I mean, 15 years later, at 15 years after the 15 years, it's worth like 350 grand. But anyway, let's jump into some questions, even though Millennial Mike hasn't joined us yet. Mark Ham, hello. Niles, hello. Corby, good morning. Dave, love your content. Thanks. You're much appreciated. First thing I see when connecting is word floor is that it's not staggered. Exactly, Ninja Vanish. I saw that and I was like mortified. Jay Molis, good morning. Ninja Vanish, good morning. Theo B, good morning. Love the real, gotta love real estate. I agree. Didn't purchase the brothel, Josh. And that was a good question. I wouldn't say no. I just need to see what the return is. Marty Skoll, what's up, gents? Closed on my second rental this week. Use seller financing. I'm catching up to you guys. Maddie, that's awesome. I love hearing that. That's fantastic. But catch us in a good way. Like anybody can get to any number, but you got to be concerned how you get there, you know, because there's some people out there that, you know, basically spend all day long flexing unit count and their margins are horrible.
I love it when I see the Business Insider articles come out that don't talk about how much someone makes.
Yes.
Because they just say 27-year-old that owns 1,250 rental units.
Right.
Right. So a tenth of a hundredth of a percent of a syndication.
Right.
Or, you know, give us the details on what does the cash flow look like? What's the equity position look like?
Yeah.
What does the debt structure look like?
Yep. 100%. Absolutely. All that stuff matters. And so what I'm always excited for, Maddie, is because I know you watch our content. What I'm always excited for is you close on the next great deal. That's what I want to see. I want to see people closing on the next great deal because my business, we never had a goal to get to financial freedom or to get to 100 or to do 50. We never had any of those goals. The only thing that we had as a goal was, so long as we're doing this, we want just the next deal, the next great deal. And the next deal that we do, we want it to be great. That was always our focus. Josh Burdick says, congratulations on both finding worthy properties. Thank you. Millennium Mike, we going to like this video or what? I think they're waiting for you, Mike. Price and Pride. It's such a hot market. Nothing has been slowing down on the West Coast. Honestly, nothing's been slowing down anywhere. If you're median minus, like I've been saying for a year, if you're median minus, there are far more buyers than there are sellers. The only place that we've seen it slow down a little bit is in the move up buyer and ultra luxury buyer homes. Those are the only ones that we've seen kind of slow a little bit because most ultra luxury buyers are willing to wait. They're willing to hold and they'll just wait and they'll buy something for cash when they're damn ready.
So it's the same here in my market. The two counties I normally invest in, it's just as hot, just as many over asking offers. I expanded my market, found two new markets where the investors know what the home prices were. They know what the rents were. And it seems like most of them haven't tracked the rent increases of the last 2 years, not the next 2 years, but the last 2 years. I found, I made at least 5 offers that made sense to me. Got 2 accepted. And so if you're in an area where your market is hot, maybe look at shifting asset class or expanding your market.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important ones is too often people run out of their market. And they run out of their market before they fully qualified that they should get out of their market because they're just looking at the wrong asset. Josh Burdick, did you guys watch Minority Mindset on Good of What's His Name's channel? Did you watch that, Ian?
So I watch a lot of Minority Mindset.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a Jaspreet Singh fan, but I don't know the video referenced in this question.
Josh, if you can give us more detail, we can answer.
Because there's a couple what's his names. We don't mention.
There are a few of those.
The names you cannot. There's not like there's strict as
It's not
Voldemort.
Voldemort, dude.
Right, exactly. No, it's Reventure, Mindset. Like a couple of the ones that are just like, oh, there's a crash coming and it's going to be horrible. Don't buy anything. Don't take any action. Feel good about your excuse to not do anything.
What's amazing is that their watchers don't hold them accountable to anything. Like nothing. Like, did you just start watching them today? And it's so bad that you're getting it. The market's so bad that you're shopping. I'm confused. The market's so bad you're shopping. There he is.
Fellas,
What's up, pal?
just
What's it like to have a Friday off?
yeah, I don't have it off. I just go to the
Oh.
range today and it's night range. So I start a few hours late. So I was able to come in. I never get a Friday off.
Well, I was going to say, pin a rose on your nose. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Although if I get to work by going to the range, that's pretty much like having the Friday off.
I was going to say, it's not the worst deal, right?
Yeah. Well, but I am instructing, so I don't get to shoot as much as I'd like, but it's all good.
Yeah. I like that. Well, good
So
to see
anyways, we still talking about the jail hack or the brothel hack? Were those the guesses down in the chat?
the brothel. Yeah, the brothel was what was guessed. I'm not disclosing anything on this super fun project and what it might be, but it is. The only thing that I was answer is that it's not a brothel.
No.
Although I'd consider
Yet.
it only because of you guys. I'd be like, you guys have a place to stay when you come out. Entertainment provided. Because I care.
Are there a bunch of poles and stages?
Not
Because I'm wondering if it's a firehouse.
not yeah.
I think Matt bought a zoo.
Now that would be an interesting one.
Oh dear God. I'd probably get less shit there than from some of my tenants. Obviously, Section 8 tenants.
Yeah.
Matt Motley, good morning. Oscar, good morning. Nick Wood, good morning. John Williams, I got a call. I told him I'll listen if he wants to spend 300K over ask. He said, you want 300K for your property? I said, no, 300 over. He asked for information, told him he'd called me. I mean,
Let's do the housekeeping statement where we say Millennial Mike looks at his phone because that's
Yes.
where the chat is for this video.
yes, that's true.
Because
I mean,
we
I
get
have
a lot of the
chat
comments of going,
notifications.
he's like a 16-year-old kid is always staring at his phone. But yeah, we speak in the chat that he's going to answer the questions for.
I don't
So-
take offense. Josh Burdick says, like Hans and Franz, these likes need to get bumped up. I like it. Oscar, I've had those calls. I let them talk and I say, sounds interesting. I will let the homeowner know because I'm a renter and they hang up so fast. It's funny. True story. I'm going to try your strategy next time. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, what I also tell them is you haven't even asked if I'm a buyer. Like if you're doing it registry of deeds, guess what? You see my name 50 effing times. Like you couldn't put that together that like do some due diligence on the person that you're calling and make them smart calls. There's a guy in my market who makes those smart calls and he gets a ton of off market deals. A ton, but he makes educated phone calls. He's not texting somebody like me with 137 doors that's got his name all over 50 deeds in the county. And then like, well, we want to do a call with you after you wasted my time for 10 minutes texting. Like,
So the thing is that the VAs are programmed to go on a logic tree, right?
correct.
And here's kind of to make that point. For several years before I thought of giving my ex's phone number, they would call or text and say, hey, are you interested in selling XYZ property? And I would say, no, but put me on your buyer's list because I'm growing a portfolio and I'm investing
Yes.
in this area too. Every single time. Okay, great. Thanks. We'll keep your contact info. I've never once
Not once,
had one of them reach back out and say, here's a property we have for sale.
not once, not once. It blows my mind. And that's the thing is there's these guys too, the higher profile guys that are like, there's one group that calls me, we talk pretty often, but I pick his brain as much as he picks mine. And they did a deal, minority mindset on our mindset. It was awkward. Oh, really? Interesting. I won't watch
Wait,
that.
he was on his channel?
that.
So there's a
apparently-
video about him. So
Here?
maybe he's talking about him. Here's the problem with that. That's a doomer. That's channel's going to grow because of the people who watch Minority Mindset and are benefiting from that information. I'm going to have to watch the video, because if he just says, hey, here's another YouTuber that has information you can learn from, that's going to grow the doomer views.
Yeah. I concur. Interesting. I mean, again, you know what? All these guys are making a better list of their colossal failures. Because what are they going to do in 2024, 2025, when we start to see some sort of a slowdown? See, I was right. Bro, you're 4 years off and you missed 80% appreciation. You couldn't have been more wrong. Like, you fell out of a boat and you found a way to not hit water. That's a you problem. So you can change the narrative to whatever you want it to be.
They did do a video together. I just pulled it up.
Amazing. How many views did
Yeah.
they get?
It says 2 days old, 15,000 views. It's a Zoom interview.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, you know who dropped the ball big time?
Who?
Ricky Caruth got to interview Pat Bet David and botched the sound quality. Like,
Shut
the
up.
sound quality on the entire video is off. I don't know if they've messed their equipment up or whatever, but when they actually
Oh.
uploaded it, they had to put a disclaimer at the beginning explaining, I'm like, you got Patrick Bet David and you screwed up the sound quality, bro. That sucks. So
So
they did
Josh-
their best to mess with it, but
Crazy. So Josh Burdick, you said it felt completely contradictory and brown nosy. Well, if you're calling somebody a brown nose, I have to believe it's Ari Mindset. Because he is.
So
he is
I
a
mean, the thing
professional
that Aria
butt kisser.
Mindset gets right, and a couple of the other channels that we kind of pick on, is you can go to their channels and you can watch fairly decent information, right? This is how you invest. You should save. You should automate everything. You should pay yourself first. And it gets 200 or 300 views.
Right.
And then one day in their timeline, they do something on a crash video and it gets 60,000 views. And if you want to help other people, you tell them the truth.
Right.
If you want to help yourself, you tell other people what they want to hear. So they figured out people want to hear about a crash, and to grow their channel, they just keep making crash videos. So I understand it. So it's not a hit against Ari Mindset. That's a smart
No.
strategy to
No.
help himself.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, the 70,000 posers that are watching real estate or subscribed to Real Estate Mindset aren't watching him. He's not picking winners. He's telling the story with no agenda. You know, I think he does a really good job at that. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's done a decent job at that. Julie Anderson, congratulations on your 300 views on Zillow yesterday after you put your house in the market. That's awesome. Oh, and Josh Burdick, thanks very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. Maddie Skoll, absolutely great point. Thank you. G Lover, I know it's Glover, but I can't help it. G Lover, hello everyone. Keith Hager, wahaha. I'm pretty sure that's in a response to how I handled that wholesaler. Yeah. So Mikey, what's going on, man? We haven't talked in like a week.
I mean, I don't think I've done a live stream with the two of you guys in much longer than that.
Well, I'm just saying we hadn't really talked in a week. So live stream,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been like a long time.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I think you're right. Probably 2 months.
This is what happens when you still have a full-time job, try to do YouTube consistently, and also invest at a distance, manage project remodels, and then get random SWAT call outs thrown in between. Oh, and I'm a father. So I was late this morning because I had to drop my kid off at the bus. So I'm just busy. Yeah, my triplex is going good. I'm way under budget. You know, initially I'd gotten that estimate for 40,000. And then when I went there in
Where I
person,
said that was like crack rock. That's insane.
right.
Yeah.
And then I went there in person and they were like, oh, actually 80,000. And I said, nope. And, you know, now I don't have the total dollar amount that I've put in so far, but it's around 20. It's around 20,000. And I'm probably 85%, 80 to 85% of the way done.
Dude.
So I should get, and I was hoping I would be able to get it around 30. So I think I'm going to get right in there about 30 to finish the remodel. I bought the triplex for 64, put 30 into it, all in under 100. It'll have an after repair value of over 160. So that'll be good. And then I had another tenant move out of a house that I seller financed a few years back. So my payment on the house is $250 a month for the
What are
next
the
13
taxes?
years. Taxes are another like $100 a month. And then the insurance is like 50. So my overall payment on that thing is, you know, 400, $500, no, $450 a month or something.
Yep.
It was rented for 800. Now it's going to re-rent for $1,250 to $1,350 to Section 8, which is what my property manager is going to angle for. So,
Nice.
so that'll be an extremely good cash flowing deal. And I thought I had one. Oh, and I've got an eviction that we're going through. So I've had a
What?
tenant in the property for 3 years. They've just always paid late, then they pay, then COVID, then they didn't pay, then they paid, then they got on assistance, then they got off assistance, and they had to figure it out. And it's just gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I've always gotten all the money from them eventually. But now it's just, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. Sorry, see you later. It's the middle of summer. I could take your rent from where it is right now at 900 and you're going to leave. I'll spend 2,000 to flip it and it's going to go to 1,350.
Exactly.
So good for me, good for me.
Yeah, that's a 200% return on capital.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty easy.
Yeah.
it's gonna
I
be
mean,
good.
hey, at the end of the day, one of the things I think is really funny is they're like, people that don't own property and don't know what they're doing and don't know what they're talking about. They'll sit there and they'll be like, oh, so you're just going to like raise the rent in that property so it makes it so unaffordable. Huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to give it to a Section 8 tenant so that someone who needs affordable housing and actually is on a voucher system program so that they can get the assistance they need, instead of someone who has a job that would qualify them for this housing, but then refuses to pay for it.
Exactly.
This is now your problem. I'm going to go help someone who actually needs help.
I'm pretty sure there's no deal out there that you could find that would give you the return on that capital. And again, at the end of the day, hey, Phil Nealon, thanks for the super chat. I'm off to go do the same thing I do every day. Try to take over the world. Good luck, Phil Nealon. Thanks
Pinky in the brain quote right there.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think, again, I look at the scenario and it's like landlords aren't leaving units vacant. They're not leaving units vacant. I'm not leaving you. If a unit is done and occupiable, it is occupied and at market rent or Section 8, but it's occupied. So it's not like, oh, you're going to be sorry. Sorry for what? Sorry that I charge market. Sorry that there's a huge housing demand. Sorry that maybe you got past me in high school, but you clearly weren't paying enough attention because supply and demand continues to rule the day. There is a supply issue of units in the affordable realm. Therefore, if it's not new A-class stuff, like that's so expensive, I mean, unbelievable. The new A-class place that's next to us, the numbers are insane. Okay?
What's your guys' response when you see the comment, being a landlord is not a job?
You've seen my response. I can't say that on TV.
You could edit it.
I mean,
I
basically,
feel like watching Blazing Saddles on TV. It's 7 minutes long.
yeah, I mean, usually my response is something to the effect of, whoever you are, I'm happy to fly you out here and have you try and spend a day with me, because I bet by 11 a.m. you're begging for me to stop. Because when we have construction going on, when we have management going on, where we're right in the throes of things like we are now, we're not in the before 3 days ago for Dion. We're not in the quiet season. We're not in the quiet season. We have 4 months to get all of the exterior stuff done. Roofs, siding, windows, landscaping. So our summers are usually very busy. We usually have more people working for us in the summertime than in the wintertime. And I think that it's just delusion on their part that they don't think it's a job. I mean, you can not think it's a job all you want, but as soon as I stop answering my phone call, if I did that for a week, I'd have 30 pissed off tenants. So it's a job. Clearly it's a job. And there's far more people that I impact on a daily basis than that jackass making that comment. The other thing I'll lastly say is, if people use the word slumlord when referring generally to a landlord, it's a direct correlation to how little money they have, because they clearly don't understand the system and how it works. I call somebody a slumlord, but I'm informed. When they're a slumlord, they're actually a slumlord. They never touch their property. They never do any work. It's just collect. The problem is that they have no upward pricing pressure either on what they're able to collect from a rent perspective. So that's why they're stuck at the number that they're stuck at, and why I end up buying that asset. And when I buy that asset, I get a good deal on it. And then when I get a good deal on it, then yeah, as you guessed it, I'm able to get more money of return on my capital. That's my rant, Dion. On
Mike, what's your response to that?
slumlord or whatever.
Being a landlord isn't a real job.
Yeah, Mike.
So I can see it from their perspective. I worked at McDonald's when I was a kid. The cashier is working 40 hours a week. The janitor's working 40 hours a week. The burger flipper is doing 40 hours a week. The manager and the general manager are all working in the business 40 hours a week. The owner of the particular franchise, the owner of the particular McDonald's franchise that you're working at, has to hire the important people like the managers, has to deal with the big problems, has to talk about organizational items, but they are not doing that 40 hours a week, and they don't have to be in the McDonald's location for 40 hours a week. They might only have to be there for a couple hours a week. They can handle most of their problems over the phone with whoever their manager is. So if you are using a property manager and you're acting instead as the owner of that franchise or the CEO, you are going to work significantly less hours. However, it was completely on you to organize everything, put all the systems and processes in place so that it can run on its own. And then you get the luxury of taking a step back where you don't have to work as much. So then if you compare hours worked to the layman, to the uneducated, it's going to seem like, oh, well, that's not a real job. They're barely even working. No, they front loaded all the work and they made sure that they sacrificed and put systems and processes in place so that they could enable other people to do the day-to-day work. Why it's a job for you, Lumberjack? You're still not only the CEO, founder, and owner, but doing the general manager duties of organizing the day-to-day 40 hours a week. Dion and I have outsourced that and hired property managers. But it is very much still work. It's just not to the same degree that my normal job is 40, 50, 60 hours a week, call out middle of the night, all that type of stuff. So now let's make it Dion's turn while he's muted. Got him.
So I see how you guys took the political track there, and Matt actually goes, let me explain to you how it's a job. And you said, right, it's a job. It's not as much time consuming. We front loaded it.
Mike
Since we're on Matt's channel, I'm going to use some words you might not want kids to hear.
Mike
so I'm giving a little bit of warning.
Mike clearly just finished
Not let the kids
sensitivity
to hear.
training.
But when you're on
No.
social media, especially like Business Insider, where all three of us have had articles written, Zuber's had them, Cody and Christian, like they go forensic on your income before they can put anything out there. And the attacks just immediately just pile up. The anti-capitalist, anti-landlord. And then the comment comes up often. That's why I asked this question. Being a landlord is not a job. My response: no screaming eagle shit. It's not a job. You do not invest in real estate to create a job, right? Matt, you are, but eventually your rehabs are going to be done. Your rentals are going to be in place. It's so that you can have a life where you don't have a job. So when I see that, I'm looking for the insult and I'm thinking, oh, you guys are on the cusp. You almost have it figured out. That's why we do this. Mike, you outsource it to property management. I put systems in place where I self-manage, and it still takes me a couple of hours a month to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that I can live on so that I don't have a job.
So if it's not a job, why is Mike paying someone to do it?
Good question. Yeah. And I pay him 50% of my profit.
That's all I'm saying. If it's not a job, why are we paying somebody to do it? Like the reason that I'll spend, even when we get to the point where my portfolio is static and I'm not adding properties, I'm not doing projects, I'm not doing rehabs, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm still going to have to pay somebody to do work. And so therefore it is a job. I mean, that's where, if it were truly not a job, then it would be self-sustaining and nothing would be needed. But that's what makes it a job. And so from my perspective, I do believe it's a job. And quite frankly, if you're doing it on my level, you better be good. You better be good. Because we're not talking about $100,000 or a couple $100,000 or a few $1 million. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars, you dummy. So that's my answer to that dumbass.
Yeah. So if you're doing
That's
it
a
at
lot of
Matt's
money.
level, you better be good. If you're doing it at my level, you better at least be mediocre.
Or have friends that are good. Like, that's
Right.
okay.
That I can call. That's what's going to save me.
Exactly. I'm like, hey, we do want to Zoom. He goes, no, phone's fine. I was like, all right, cool. Well, that's fine. I thought consulting services had begun. But yeah, so that's the thing is like, if it weren't a job, we wouldn't be paying somebody to do it. Like I pay 3 people really well, 4 people really well to do their job. And that is to eliminate or reduce the number of phone calls that I get. Now, the idea is after we slow down a little bit, the idea is hopefully we can get away with 1 out in the field and 1 in the office. That's the hope, is that we get to 2. But that means that any longer, might I still buy assets? Might I still buy property? Deanna and I were talking, and I think, and it occurred to me when I was talking to you that I said, I think that when I retire, I will also be mostly retired from my real estate portfolio, because I'm replacing me all around me in all of my circles. The only one that I won't replace is husband and dad. Those are the 2 jobs that I want. But all the other ones, it's like I'm literally paying to replace myself in all these other areas.
There was a period of time where I kind of thought my brother was nuts. He was running a tree service, working 10 to 15 hours a day. And then he was buying a lot of mobile homes on acreage that were falling apart, literally caving in floors, dilapidated. And then he's a craftsman. He'd go in, he'd redo the whole thing, full gut rehabs, rounded corners, vaulted ceilings. Like, he's really good at turning these into good rentals. But he was doing that on top of running his tree service. I thought he was crazy. Then he turned 50, shut down his tree service, right? He parked all his equipment, hasn't moved it since, no matter how much his brother asked him to. And then his rentals are in place. No work left to do. Like, he's done a couple of roofs since then or whatever, but in 8 years to do a couple of roofs is not a lot of work. The insanity was the amount of work that went into setting up the life where he never has to work again.
Yeah. To Nazeek's point, it's not a robot. I actually work in AI and RPA, so it's not a robot, because it's the consistent concept that's consistently driven through. And these people have full on profiles. Like, I go and I look their profiles up. If they have 2 pictures, yeah, it's suspect. But if they have this constant anti-capitalism rant, like, I'll look at their pages before I eviscerate them, because usually they're too dumb and they post a bunch of stupid stuff on their pages that gives me more ammo to eviscerate them. And you know what? If somebody says, I have no problem being the person that taught them a lesson, I embrace that. Happy to do it. Because clearly them being given the soft answer all their lives hasn't worked. So now I'll give them the hard answer. Corey B, thanks guys for all the videos. Have learned a lot from all 3 of you, and Mike Z as well. Corey B, you're very welcome. Look Up says, when you buy duplex that has tenants in place, do you run a new background check? Dion.
No, you don't get to vet the tenants.
Right.
Running background checks is to try to eliminate things that you can think would make a bad tenant. Bad credit, low income, whatever your criteria is, evictions. So you're trying to vet them before you put them in place. Once they're in place, what I do is, before I use the binder strategy to get the rents where I want them, have the tenant ask me to raise the rents, I wait 2 months. That's my vetting process. For those 2 months, I don't care what their credit is. I have tenants with a credit score in the 400s. They're not tenants I put in place. These are tenants I purchased a property, they live there. I don't care what their credit score is. Do they pay their rent on time?
Right.
Never had a late or missing payment. Do they call me for super trivial things? One had to be educated on what super trivial meant. And do I get noise complaints from the neighbors? So those 3 things I can find out within 2 months to know if I want to keep those tenants or not. A credit score, once they're in place, isn't going to help me. In most places, you can't just not renew the lease because they don't have a credit score that you like. So I don't.
It's usually about behavior. Mike, what do you do?
I don't. When I inherit a tenant, most of the time I understand that even a good tenant could still turn into a bad tenant. There's just something that happens when properties transition that I've noticed. And I don't do any checks. I do my research on the tenant before buying the property. I want to, okay, is this tenant paying? How long have they been there? Where did they come from? Private tenant, Section 8 tenant. And then when you inherit the property, I expect the worst, that they're immediately not going to pay and it's going to turn into an eviction. And if it doesn't happen that way, I'm very pleasantly surprised.
Nice. Nick Wood, I'm on the hunt for my first multifamily deal and definitely running into my market being high priced and short on inventory. I would consider a house hack. I'm in Central Washington and starting to expand my circle, trying to be patient. Patience is the key. The thing that you want to look at most often is understanding what the market is, what strategies might work best in that market. House hack might be the best approach. It might not be. But I think house hack is the way to unlock. And again, if you can just live with it for 5 to 7 years, you will change your life and change your future. It's pretty impressive.
If you're Ephrata, Moses Lake, Central Washington, it's a little harder to expand your market. If you're in Spokane, Yakima, it's a little easier. So it kind of depends on the markets that you're close to. Think of how far you're willing to travel to self-manage. And Millennial Mike does property management out of state. It is also possible to do property management in state if it's far enough away. And this is not a dig on Central Washington not being high cost of living area. It's because you compare price to rents, right? So the middle of absolute nowhere can be high cost of living if the rents aren't there. High priced properties if the rents aren't there. So what you also compete with a lot in Central is you have people in Tacoma who are thinking, this is a terrible 3-2 house that needs $100,000 worth of work. I want to pay $500,000 for it. Who reaches out to Central Washington, where you have a $150,000 house that doesn't need any work, and the person from Western Washington says, "I'll pay $300,000. That's a deal. That's less than what I would pay over here, and I don't have to do any work to it." So you're kind of competing with people doing that. It's one of the reasons why Cody and Christian, who don't really invest in the small multifamily 4 units or less, are investing in Central Washington, because there's so much growth potential there in a market that, until remote working became as popular as it is now, didn't have the rents to support it.
One of the reasons why I ended up in Indiana was because here on the western side of Washington, the Seattle area, I started drawing my circles, and I said, there's just no way I can find anything affordable here. And this was back in 2018. And I started drawing my circle, and I ended up in, okay, well, let's look at Yakima, the Tri-Cities, Richland. When, for those of you who don't know, those are cities in the center of the state. Why don't we look at Kennewick? Why don't I look down in Goldendale, or all the way over in Spokane? And I realized that affordability is a problem everywhere in this state. It's very expensive. Washington was the second or third worst state. I'll have to go pull that graph up. It was like Hawaii was the only one that was worse than us, I think. And we might have been second in the nation in terms of inaffordability. Or the second highest median house price or something like that. I'll go find the stat, but it's going to be very difficult to make sense of the numbers here. And so that's when I said, okay, well, if I'm already 3, 4, 5 hours away, this isn't going to be an easy thing for me to get to and from. I'm going to have to put systems and processes in place to be able to do this at a distance. And that's when I was talked into considering going at an even further distance. And then for those who know my story, I then did a whole bunch of research and spent the time. I was like, all right, I'm just going to go where the numbers make sense, and I'll figure it out there, because I'm going to be figuring it out here anyways. So I'm going to put all that time and energy and effort to learn how to do it at a distance. At least I'm going to pick a good spot. Relative, of course, good is an opinion.
Sorry, I had to handle an issue. Issue handled. What'd I miss?
We were talking Washington a bit, so we'll get back to real estate everywhere, especially since it's your channel and you're on the East Coast.
I don't mind. I like
Siberia.
learning about. I find that I know a lot about the Washington market.
Well, you know a lot about the granite here now and the countertops.
Yes.
Corey B asks, if you get a large chunk of money, like end of year bonus, how would you guys decide if you should pay down bad debt or use that to invest in a cash flowing property? Do you guys have an answer for that?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to paying down debt, exactly what type of debt is he looking at paying down? Is it credit card debt? Do you need to like wipe out some bad debt that you have? That's probably not a bad use for it. If you're talking about paying off a mortgage, that's probably a terrible use for it, especially if that mortgage has a 2, 3, 4, even a 5 in front of it. Why would you pay down debt at a great interest rate just to then go get new debt on a new property at a worse interest rate? I wouldn't do that at all. So if I got a big chunk of change, like, I don't know, let's pick a number. If I got $25,000, what can I do with $25,000? Well, in my market, that's actually a down payment on a house. I could buy a new rental with that. I could also completely remodel one of my units and take it from renting it $900 a month to $1,250 or $1,300 a month, which, as Matt pointed out earlier, is the best cash on cash return for that amount of money right there. That's if you can get $400 extra rent, and I put $25,000 and made a property beautiful and brand new, that's a really good cash on cash return. That's what I do with my chunks of money.
So
Yeah,
go ahead, Matt.
So, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm always looking for what's the greatest return on my capital. And that might be a rehab, that might be a new purchase, that might be paying down debt. You know, if I had, I don't know, credit card debt that I ran up from a project that I did because I didn't do it out of cash flow, and I've got it at 17%, well, it makes more sense to write that, you know, to pay that down. If I have debt, I want to be paying down the most expensive debt. But that's only after I've proven that my money can't make more money, babies, by doing something else. It's all about, am I reducing debt and paying down debt? But that might be at, if it's a credit card, it could be 17, 18%. Well, that's tough to compete with, you know, certainly buying a property, but rehabbing one, it might not be. And so those are the types of scenarios that I look through, even when I was a smaller landlord, not in stature or size, but in number of units. That was what I looked at was, hey, I can keep this debt on my credit card at 17%, but I'm getting 30% return when I rehab that unit. And so I'm better off borrowing that money off of my credit card and paying to rehab the unit. That's my take. Oh, sweet Lord.
So when I worked at the CDL school, I would put on a hat anytime it was teaching time. I'm gonna put some knowledge in Corey's head that'll help him choose or help them choose
Sure.
what to do. Should this be, if you get a large chunk of money, what should you do with it? Right now, Corey, it sounds like you completely understand, and this is the way you phrased your question. And I mean, and I think you have some good knowledge here. You asked, should I pay down bad debt? So that means you understand that, like when Millennial Mike said, if you have a mortgage that's at a low rate and it's producing a good income, paying that off is probably a dumb idea, right? I completely agree. So people understand good debt, bad debt. Here's the knowledge for you today. There's a third category. There's good debt, bad debt, worse debt. So when I looked at what do I do with money, do I pay down debt? Do I invest? Do I save? That's right. You need your reserves. So make sure you have your reserves in place. When I looked at debt, high interest, and at the time when I was deciding this, it was 6% or higher. So right now, high interest rate debt is probably 8% or higher. So any debt that you have that's 8% or higher, I would focus on paying that down before I would invest. Second, anything with an adjustable rate, I would focus on paying off. So credit cards can adjust, student loans can adjust, mortgages that have an adjustable rate. Anything that could get worse in the future, I would focus on paying. But then I would divide my money in half after that, right? So all the money that came in, half went to taking care of bad debt that wasn't adjustable. The first was adjustable rate or high debt, high interest rate. The other half went to the house hacking fund. And I see here that, you know, something like Nick saying, well, I can't house hack because I'm this old and I have kids and I have a family. That's because sometimes people have a very limited scope on what we think something is, and we get anchored in and thinking that's what we have to do. So when we talk house hacking, people think I have to rent rooms to somebody, or I have to have a small multifamily where I share units, and small multifamilies are smaller. There are small multifamilies like here in Browns Point, one just sold that was 2 5-bedrooms and a 4-bedroom on one property, right? So you can get big houses that you can house hack, but you can also remove that. And again, one of the forms of house hacking, Nick, is to owner occupy for a better down payment and the best interest rate. Live there for a year or two, never share property with anybody, and then buy a house. Are you saying that because of your age and your family, you are incapable of buying a house ever again in your life? That's a house hack. Buy a house, move into it, rent out the old one. Buy a house, move into it, rent out the old one. So we don't have to be pigeonholed into thinking house hacking is this thing where I have to have strangers around my kids, or I have to move to another school district. It is an option. And when it comes to financial freedom, what are you willing to do? So with this, what do I do with this large chunk of money? Have an order of operations for what you do with all money, whether it's money from your job, overtime, side hustle, a bonus. It should all be handled, in my opinion, the same. It's one of the reasons why if somebody wins the lottery and people talk about, should I take the annuity or should I take the large lump sum? A lot of investors will say I would take the lump sum because I can get a better than 5% return, which is what you get on your money in the annuity. But if you're the average person that doesn't have the infrastructure in to invest, You probably want the annuity so that you could take the time and years and education that it takes to be able to put the money to work to get that better return. It's not like there's one size fits all for this, but having that pre-programmed order of operations on this is what I do with money makes it a lot easier when you get the money.
Agreed.
Teaching how.
Andy Borch says, hello, Matt. I'll be following your advice this weekend to investigate what is causing a small patch of mildew in my house hack ADU. In which instance would you consider hiring a pro versus DIY for this? So I don't know your skill set or your comfort level or your state laws when it comes to regarding mildew. But what I would probably do first is I would wipe it with bleach. That's the first thing I would do, and then see if it comes back. If it then comes back, then I would have a spare piece of sheetrock or maybe even PVC board just as a temporary hold, where I would then cut into the ceiling and start investigating, maybe renting a little camera from Home Depot if you don't have one, or from a tools place. But then looking and seeing if you can, and then put your hand up there, seeing if you feel any moisture. That's the second thing that I would do. And then based on what you find, again, I would then keep on tearing back until you find, or if you find all of a sudden that you see a bunch of mildew or things like that there, at that point, I would close it back up and I would call a pro. And I would just take some white caulking with whatever piece you put in place, and I'd white caulk around the edges, and then I would call a pro. If you find anything other than just, some sheetrock that might be a little bit wet or moist. That's the order by which I would do it, but that's based on my skill set, my state laws, and kind of what's generally acceptable practices around here. It's funny because in the state of Florida, you actually need a license to call something mold. And every tenant, it's mold. It's black mold, actually, for every tenant. And for every landlord, it's mildew. And what's really cool about the state of New Hampshire that I live in is that we have no standards, because we recognize that there's going to be moisture in buildings because we have 200 and 300 and 400-year-old buildings. And so we recognize you might have mildew in your house. There's no way to legislate out the sun. There's no way to take care of that necessarily. And not everybody has a reaction to mildew. Some people do have a bad reaction. Some people don't. Andy Borch says it's close to the wall, very close to an AC duct. I think it could be condensation or some filtering water from outside. It could be either of those. And that's the thing, is it could be something where, that's why it could be a plumbing pro. It could be an HVAC pro. It could be something where you see it and see the type of condensation it's creating. You can look up online and say, all right, is this something that I'm going to fix the problem by insulating it? With wrapping some insulation around it. Or how is this that can be fixed? So that's what I would, that's how I would look at it. That's how I would look at it. Because I think that gives you a bunch of options. But again, that varies based on state, local laws, what your comfort level is. I mean, it could be mold. It could be bad mold. And so I always look at how bad the scenario could be. So when I'm cutting that open, I'm wearing a mask. I'm wearing usually what's called a P100, which is the discs on the end make you look like an alien. You can use an N95, but that filters out 95%. I like the P100s because the 100 stands for 100%. I've got filters on there. But that's based on my experience. I'll tear that open, but I know if I find something that's of concern, I instantly have a board that I can put back up in place, screw it in place, caulk the edges. Exactly. There's a P100 right there.
Painter's mask.
Yeah. So, and that makes sure that it literally filters out 100% of what's coming through the air. So that would be the task. That would be how I would handle it, because I don't need a professional coming in and, going and starting the whole, like it could very easily be a problem that you could fix if you're so inclined. Next question was Nick Wood. 1,000% would house hack if a deal came up in our school district. Thanks, Dion. I completely get it. I mean, the other thing you could do, Nick, too, and it's a little bit longer tail. You could look at properties. You could be looking at properties that have the ability or the possibility of an ADU. You know, you could look at that possibility, and that could be your venture into this, where it's like you then build an ADU, and the town that you have, if you're in that Pacific Northwest, a lot of those towns have 4 to 6 different designs that are already pre-approved by the city. You could look at that and then have that built and then see that number there. And then the numbers get nuts, because now you're building the ADU or the DADU on that property. You're getting rent on that. Then you're renting your house. Then you move into the next property and you do a DADU again. So to Dion's point, it's really where there's a will, there's a way. You know, Dion never said, well, I've got a family, so I'm not going to house hack. I never said, hey, I just got married, I'm going to do a house hack. Or, hey, we started having kids, we're going to do a house hack. I only told my wife that we would do it because that's what we said we would do. But that's how we did it. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I've noticed a general trend in the comments and the thousands of Instagram messages that I get from people who are asking me about house hacking, that typically in a relationship, it seems to be that convincing the kids to do a house hack wouldn't be that difficult. Whoever it is that's messaging me seems to be on board with the idea of a house hack. But somehow there's one of the parties involved that's strongly against downgrading from where they're currently living into a smaller unit where they're going to have to share. So I believe you, Nick. The school district, I'm wondering if maybe someone else is vetoing this.
So sales is about alignment. It's about alignment. And if you are intellectually honest, and it's about alignment, I think you're probably right, Mike. But I think in all likelihood, the person's probably not pitching it the best way that they could pitch it, which is, hey, we're in our mid-40s. We're looking at retirement. You love your job. You hate your job. You want to get out of your job. You don't want to do that job anymore. What are you willing to do or change with your existing life and the structure by which you have it to accelerate your ability to walk away from said job? So when Ashley and I have the conversation, she's at home with the kids. We obviously wanted a larger place. She doesn't want a house hack. And I did it 9 times. I'm good with not house hacking a 10. Although that being said, I would happily do a 10. I literally said
house hacking isn't forever. It's for now, for a while.
And again, I said this to somebody that was 51 years old. And I said, this is the perfect house for you. You actually walk away with $500,000, $500,000 in cash when you sell your house. You can buy this one for 3.5% down. You can have an ADU there. You don't have to live with anybody. And these numbers mean you retire 5 years earlier, maybe 6. She's like, yeah, I just don't think it's a fit. Hey, that's cool. Work for 6 years. One thing I would tell you to do is go ask 10 of your friends that are over 60 years old how much they love their jobs and going to work every day. Let me know what the results of that poll are. I'd be willing to bet you 80 or 90% of it go, I wish I'd done something a little bit different earlier in life so I could actually not have to work at 60, 62, 65, whatever. Or even worse, 67, 69, 72. You know, people having to work later because of previously not well thought out decisions, or a horrible spouse, because I've got 2 out of 3 of those here.
Good job on both of you not making this a toxic masculinity sexist conversation, because I had about 10 scenarios run through my head and I can't talk about any of them. But both of you did this to where, yes, there's probably one person in the relationship that is on board and one that isn't. What are you willing to do to reach financial freedom?
Yeah. Scott and Deanna Ryan, my agent will not insure a building with knob and tube. Yeah, sounds right. We budget for rewire when writing offers on old buildings. Do you know if there are plans that will cover old wiring? Yes. Get an agent that doesn't represent one company. Get an agent that represents multiple companies, and then tell them, I will give it in writing that we will remedy this issue within this period of time, or they can drop coverage. Now, they might charge you more money and you might have to get some sort of like a construction insurance plan. if they have something called J&J, Johnson & Johnson, we all know who those guys are. They actually sell insurance as well. And they do something called a builder's risk policy. You'll want to make sure that you're walking through that scenario. And so what I would tell your agent is you suck, you're fired, and you're not making any effort for me, and you clearly don't know the things that I need. So you go find somebody that actually has some talent and know-how, and you talk to them and you say, this is the scenario I have, because I can tell you, if you talk to my insurance people, you know what? You have 3 different offers from 3 different companies offering you a builder's risk policy. And then it's just a matter of picking which one it is and seeing what the pros and the cons are. Will this one let me do it for only 3 months or 6 months? Is this one a year? If I go 6 months, can I get some of my money back? So I would tell you that the problem there, Scott and Deanna, is likely your agent. Sorry if they're a relative. Usually insurance agents are, but you need to make some calls talking to real insurance brokers that actually represent multiple different carriers is what you're looking for. Nick Wood, local jurisdiction won't allow ADUs right now, but hoping that changes. Wish in one hand, and you know what? George Ramirez, how much of an undertaking is it to build an ADU with your first property? I think it's just like anything. It is. The mistake that everybody makes in doing anything in real estate is using somebody where it's their first. Have you ever done an ADU before? No, but I mean, it's pretty much the same. Oh, sweet Lord. It's not pretty much the same. Work with people that have done what you're trying to do. There's thousands of hours on YouTube available to you guys. There's these types of construction questions. It's the same as building a house. It's a little bit different because you're not buying land, but it's a process. Anything is a process. So you have to look at it and say, there's absolutely an opportunity to build ADUs in a lot of different areas. So the first thing I would do is I would ask the town, do you guys support ADU or DADUs? And do you guys have approved plans that the city already approves? It's just a matter of hitting the square footage and the setbacks. A lot of times you can get the zoning board or someone from the zoning board to call you back and say, you don't have the square footage for this, and so you would need a variance. And then you talk to a local attorney that gets that stuff approved, that then tells you, hey, this is what the process is going to be. I can tell you that I've gone down the path of getting something approved. It cost me $8,000, or actually $8,000. It was a pretty long process, but we're going to get it approved. So it's just a process. That's what I would tell you. Mike, any thoughts on that?
I was going to say, if you're interested in getting into, when we all want to get into real estate, we all want passive income. There's so many different things you could do. My friend Justin Cambra, who I don't know if you've met before, Matt.
I haven't met him yet. We've swapped emails.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's a student of Thatch. When he's gone to Dion's local meetup out here, he and I played soccer together a few weeks back. He's a stud. 45 plus rentals, mostly a long distance investor like me in Wisconsin. He has a house here in Seattle, and he started doing the parking lot hack. Oh, there's not enough parking in your neighborhood in Seattle because the city is absolute garbage and doesn't plan on these types of things. And if you want to get a city parking permit, it's a fortune. Well, tell you what, I'm going to level my personal residence. I'm going to level all of the grass and the trees, get rid of it, pave it, create 30 new parking spots, and charge $100 to $150 a month for people to park. Guy's freaking killing it. And all he had to do was just lay some pavement. Now, probably Central Washington for Nick Wood, there's probably not quite as much of a shortage on parking, but there's so many different creative things that you can do to bring in extra income from property you already own. Maybe it's doing a DADU or an ADU. Maybe it's just paving it, spray painting some lines and charging people money. And if they don't pay, there's no eviction. You call the tow truck.
Right.
Easy.
If somebody reaches out to me and says, I'm looking at doing a bunch of rehabs and growing a rental portfolio, I'm going to recommend Lumberjack Landlord. If somebody reaches out and says, I'm in a high cost of living area and because of whatever reason, I can't invest here, I want to invest out of state, I recommend Millennial Mike. If somebody asks the question, what's it like to do an ADU? What's the method for doing an ADU? What are the strategies I should use? What ADU is the best one to build? We recommend that ADU guy here on YouTube. Derek's phenomenal. He's got some really cool advice that some investors might not think of. Sometimes when it comes to building ADUs as an investor, I'm thinking, My area will let me do how much and how many bedrooms can I fit, because more bedrooms means more rent. But Derek's done a couple of cost studies where he showed that a smaller ADU can get a better ROI
Yes.
because the rent's not much difference, but the cost is significantly different.
Huge.
So I would check out the YouTube channel, That ADU Guy, and he has other advice. Like, you can talk to your municipality, but they're going to say they're amazing to work with, right? They're not going to tell you that they hate the public and that's why they work there, because they want to throw a wrench into the cog if possible. Little Ron Swanson there, but talk to the contractors in your area, the ones who are actually doing builds, and ask them, what is this city like to work with?
Yeah, agreed. Derek is awesome. He spends a lot more time showing active projects because he's usually on site doing that work. That's something we're going to do more of. But yeah, That ADU Guy, Derek, I think is it Cheryl or Sherelle? I think it's Cheryl. But anyway, that's who we're talking
How it
about.
pronounces it. That's the problem with being friends with YouTube buddies, is you're the lumberjack. Dion Talk is his last name. You know, freaking. I had to talk when we were at that conference down in Portland. Well, I was talking about how important it is to do virtual networking, and I was like, even Dividend Dave's here in the audience, whose real name isn't actually Dividend Dave. That's not what his mother named him. That's just what we call him because of his YouTube names.
Agreed. Let's see. Most people don't want to grind. Look up. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, how do you think I found out this information? I wasn't born this way. I had to go figure it out. I had to go have a bunch of conversations. That's where people talk about the 10,000 hours that you put into something is what makes you an expert. That's how it works. Like, I've got 20 years of doing this, and that's what makes me an expert, but I've been down that road with all the different cities. So anyway, Josh Burdick, I'm trying to match a stomp finish on a ceiling. That's a nightmare. That had cans added. Yep. And we had to hole saw and put holes for the electrical. The texture is a pain to blend. Totally understand that. What you can do is you can take a picture of it, look it up with Google Lens. This is good stuff. Take a picture of it, look it up with Google Lens, and then look on the internet, and you will likely be able to find the texture piece that you can then do fresh plaster and then put your stamp in. Usually you can find that. And if you're looking to do a flower or a half moon is easy, but if you're looking to do like a flower stamp, which is what I found a couple of, just take a mop and just use a mop. That actually works pretty well. And then be ready to clear it off. Let's see. JNYC. Dion, did you say you lived in a bus for a while?
I was homeless when I got out of the Marines, me and my son, and for a period of time, I did live in a bus. That was a little less homeless than the actual homeless we were. My brother still has that bus. I actually saw it on my most recent trip down to when I went to California. It doesn't look like it's doing very well. It looked a little better when I lived in it. Yeah. So is this the question for JNYC? Does an RV count as an ADU?
Yes.
So my friend Dan, who retired, has been on my channel. He has 9 rentals. He started investing in 2018 and retired in August of last year. On his house, he put in an RV pad, connected power, septic. So I think it completely, in my mind, counts as an ADU, not for city definition, but if you go through the steps of making it a permanent structure, but not permanent, but a person's ability to live in it without having to take it to get out your gray water and everything, and it's tied into water and power and septic. In my mind, it absolutely counts as an ADU because he has it rented out on his property. That added another unit to his rentals and significant cash flow because it didn't have really much cost. He probably put 5,000 into the pad.
Yeah. Mad 76, high late again. That's okay. Look up Home Depot into real estate now. Yep, they're selling metal frame kits. Personally, I'd stay clear of these. Yeah, I mean, I've actually thought about buying like one of the ones that they're selling that they manufacture, one of the ones that Lowe's is selling that they're manufacturing. And there's a couple of other companies. I've looked at it. The problem is it is a massive amount of work to get those approved from a zoning perspective. So I have to find a town that doesn't have an inspector, but that would be kind of too far away. And that's what creates the problem, is it's a pretty big pretty big job, but I've looked into it. I'm trying to go down that approach, but it's a challenge. Nick Wood just did a short plat and sold the extra lots. Cool. Which has me set up for multifamily investing. Great job, Nick. That's awesome. Shirley W. Has anyone tried pad split? How popular is renting by the room exactly?
That's the program that Pace Morby recommends. It's what he's doing with a lot of his rentals right now. He's renting out by the room to make more money on them. I think that's probably very popular in certain cities. He is based out of, or does a lot of his work in Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah. Very crowded area, very dense area. So is Seattle, Washington. Renting by the room can be very profitable. My girlfriend was renting at a place in Kent, which was a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, and they ranged rents in there from $750 to $950 per room. Yeah. So you do the math on that. I mean, yeah, you can make a bunch of money. Is it going to work in a more rural area? Probably not. A less dense area? Probably not. So you probably just need to research your market. But I mean, yeah, there are places where renting by the room works.
Absolutely. The thing that people have to really consider is town law and state law. There are a lot of towns that don't allow rent by the room. And if they find out that you're doing it, they can really mess up your day. Like they can give you 10 days to get all of your tenants out. 10 days. There's a town like that around where we live, where if you have more than 3 people that are unrelated living in the same property that are over the age of 18, you actually, if the city finds out, they can give them a 10-day eviction notice. So it's one of those things where, I mean, I can appreciate that Pace is awesome at a lot of things, but man alive, he is like one stroke of legislation away from sub 2 deals blowing up. You know, he's one stroke of legislation away from, you know, or the town finding out, because most people that work for the town, they're not cultured in these things. They do not know this market stuff. And so the challenge it creates for them, quite frankly, is they don't know about it until they know about it. And then you're screwed. And then what do you do? Because then you're creating an event where inventory comes to market. So that's why for me, I don't like strategies that can be gotten rid of with the stroke of a pen or depending on them. Dion?
So, well, I mean, look at what just happened in Dallas.
Right.
Stroke of the pen, no more short term.
There you
Good
go.
luck to all those Airbnb people and the Airbnb arbitrage people who are now locked into potentially 12-month contracts before they're up and they can't make any money.
I'm telling you, this is, again, and these are things like on the margins, you know, these are not things, these are things that very much concern me for new investors, because you're not going to see any articles about all the Airbnbers that blew up. You're not going to see any of those articles because there's going to be plenty of them that are going to blow up. Dividend Dave, thanks for the super chat, my friend. Why is it a good idea to have a dolphin as an investment partner? Because they invest with porpoise. I want another $10 for reading that, Dave.
Yeah.
That was awful.
It's the best thing about the super chat is Dave is like, ha, I get to hear these words out loud.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Ron Burgundy. Want to get me to read something stupid? Put it in a super chat. I just go in there with a reckless abandon.
Yep.
I'm going to offer for a 4-plex. Awesome. With a 3-1-2-1, 2 ADUs. Wow. I love that. All of them below market value, 1 ADU for an elderly woman for $200. What are your thoughts on that? I love it. I mean, based on what you're sharing in that deal, Mad 76, that is one of my favorite deals I ever did. Was one property that I bought that had a 4-plex, a triplex, and 1 bungalow, and then 1 3-bedroom house. One of my favorite deals ever. So I freaking love that deal. It all matters what the numbers are, but if you know that there's some increase in the ADUs, etc. Mike, what would you say about a deal like that?
I mean, it's a larger multifamily deal. I mean, you need to make sure that you're not overpaying. It's the same thing that I would do for any deal. Like, okay, well, are you overpaying? Are you getting it a good deal? What are the terms? Are the rents justified? What type of repairs are going to have to come up in it? Are there going to be any evictions that you immediately encounter? Are there going to be any tenants that you try to keep that you need to bump up? Do you need a binder strategy? How long is it going to take you to stabilize and then optimize the property? because what looks good on the spreadsheet today may take a very long time to materialize. Do you have the funds necessary to weather that storm and get through that process? If you do, and you're confident in all that, well, then fantastic. Yeah, this is great. That's awesome. And if you don't, well, this could end up becoming a major headache for you.
Dion?
What are the existing leases, right?
Yeah.
Right. Whenever you're making your offer, you're going to look at price, rates, rents to figure out what your yield is. And one thing that an owner is likely to do, right? This isn't 100% of the time, but I've actually seen this a couple times now. If you said elderly woman, which means this person might have lived there for a while if they're paying 200,
Yep.
the landlord might feel obligated to try to protect them.
Yep.
I had an accepted offer in a duplex in a town called Shelton. I've actually sent that to somebody else to go to look at. But the owner blew the deal up by re-signing new year-long leases at significantly low rents to help protect the tenants. So it killed the deal for me.
Yeah.
If they're on month to month, then you need to know your local laws on how much notification is needed for a rent adjustment. I would recommend waiting 2 months to use the binder strategy to make sure these are tenants you want to keep. And if they are, I would do binder over just raising the rents, unless sometimes mathematically it just works out the best thing to happen for everybody is if the tenants were to leave. In that case, sometimes just making a rent adjustment. Is there rent control in your area? Does it apply? And a lot of people just think, I live in a rent controlled area like California or Oregon and don't know the specifics. If you're in California and you own a duplex or a single family house and it's in your name, not in an LLC, that's not rent controlled. But you're in California where they have rent control. If you're in Oregon and you're purchasing a small multifamily and you're going to occupy one of the units, that's not rent controlled. You need to look up your local laws that can change at any point in time.
Yep.
What was the last rent control that changed? It was like St. Paul or something.
Minneapolis, St. Paul. Yep.
Yeah, 3% rent cap, even on new builds, and which had the expected negative impact on more builds in the area. But that's what I would look at. So it's not just, what are the numbers? Does it make sense? It's how many months are remaining on the leases? When would I adjust the rates? And let's say that there was 5 months remaining on this $200 a month for this unit, and it should be at $600 a month, right? Because area average is 8. So you binder and get to 6, whatever. So you would expect it to make sense at 6. That means you're losing $400 a month on that unit for however many months that lease is in place, or how many months that you need to give notice to make it a rent adjustment. Take that $400, and in this case, let's say you had 6 months remaining on the lease. So it's 400 times 6. Take that number, add it to your cost to acquire, and mentally figure out, does that still get you the return that you're looking for? Doesn't kill the deal. It can kill the deal.
Right. Agreed. Seer Guru, hi Lumber Boss. Hello, Seer Guru. Good to have you. Nick Wood, thanks for the super chat, $4.99. Dividend Dave, Sex Panther. 60% of the time, it works every time. Nice job finding a panther too, except I'm pretty sure that's a leopard or a cheetah. But still good. Mad76, he says no rent control. It's South Florida. That's good. I mean, anytime you can get, I love multiple properties on a single plot of land. I love them. I love them because the market naturally discounts them. The market naturally discounts them. That one, I bought one a year and a half ago. It was two duplexes on the same piece of land. I stole that property and I bought it at market, what they marketed it for. I was like, I'll close on the deal. We'll close in 30 days. And we got the deal done. But that was two duplexes. It was a 3121 and a 3121. And we got that deal for $330,000, I think. And the rents on that building now are 21, 1750 and 1350. So, like over $7,000 a month of income on that deal. And that's just a killer deal. And so what I would tell you is those multiple buildings on the same lot, the market doesn't know what to do with them. And largely agents don't know what to do with them. If they were basing it purely on the numbers, now I drastically raised the rents after I improved the asset. But even based on the rents that were there, the rents were $4,500. She didn't know how to price it. Simple rule. And at $4,500, the thing was worth $450, $475 based on what the rates were at that time. It's a mistake that they made. Look up. This is a really excellent exchange. I appreciate your expertise. Happy to do it. We're bound to have a good exchange over the course of an hour and a half live stream, maybe one or two. Andy Borch, question for you all. How do you ensure that the tenants pay utilities that are on the owner's name, such as water, sewer, or trash collection? Does Dion have any explanation like math of time for this? Dion?
So, whenever possible, we have utilities and tenants' names, right? That I think is universally accepted with all of us when possible.
Yes.
But there are some municipalities that require water and sewer to only be in the owner's name, and that the city use a term for why.
Yeah.
So then in those cases, the tenants pay. It's just added to the lease. I don't use, you can probably backdate it and say a month later, you're going to pay the amount that I'm billed. I just have a flat amount in the lease for, water is $55 a month or whatever utility it would be. It's part of the rent.
Yeah.
Right. So if they don't pay that, it's just like they didn't pay the full amount of the rent. So the eviction process would start immediately day one, which would give them the paperwork to go and apply for benefits to help pay their utilities if that's what they needed. And let them know that you're going to hold them to the lease. Again, what we run into in situations like Mike and Matt and mine, tenants look for properties sometimes that aren't managed by property managers because they're looking to see how soft the owner is and how much they can walk all over you.
Yes.
So you have to treat it just like the same across the board. If they don't pay the rent or if they don't pay the utilities, you have your normal period, whatever it is, 3 or 5 days in your state. The next day where it's late, according to the lease, late fees kick in, whether they're missing $1 of the rent or 100% of the rent or any of the utilities. And then you start your process for eviction in your area.
Yes. Mad76, thanks for the super chat. Owner wants to stay for a few months renting. How long could I wait until I occupy the property in FHA? I would ask your mortgage broker, but I believe it's either 60 or 90 days. I think it's either 60 or 90 days, but I would double check that because it's been a number of years since I've done an FHA, but I'm pretty sure it's 60 to 90 days. You can do a few things on how you structure the paperwork so you still close, but maybe you give them like a lease back, but there's a number of different ways that you can do that. Tom O'Donnell, how are HELOCs being affected by the bank tightening? Millennial Mike, you have a HELOC.
I do, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, as the prime rate has gone up, the HELOC interest rates have gone up as well. And so if you had a HELOC that had a locked-in rate for a certain amount of time, you're probably still good. But unfortunately, some of those are coming to a close. Mine did. Mine was locked in from when I opened it in April of last year to April of this year. And then it jumped way up to be in line with the Fed funds rate or the prime rate, which is like 8.5 right now, something like that. So you're going to be paying more to hold your money. That's number one. Number two, something that Matt or the Lumberjack talked to me about was that when banks tighten credit, one of the first things they get rid of is home equity lines of credits that are unused because the bank has to allocate the money to lend to you. But if you're not using it, the bank isn't making money yet. They just have to have it sitting there waiting for you. But until you've borrowed it from them, they're not making that 8%. They're making 0. So they will oftentimes close home equity lines of credits so that they can instead open up a different line of credit in the form of a mortgage or a car loan or something that's actually going to pay them because they need to make money because things aren't looking so good. So you could see if your bank is under some stress or even if they're just being conservative, this is what happened back in the 07-08 financial recession. Banks tightened credit, HELOCs are credit, that can get tightened.
Yeah, so true. So there are some banks that are closing down HELOCs. There are some banks that have said we're flat out not lending on commercial real estate right now. It depends on which bank, but there's a number of them out there. Tim L, can you still get conventional lending on multi-building properties? Yeah, I did. Yep. What you want to do is, again, you're going to have to shop for the bank, the bank or the broker, whatever. Usually, so long as the unit count is 4 units or less, usually you're okay. Where you start to get into some trouble is if it's 5 units or more on the property and you're trying to get residential, because residential is technically 4 units or less. So that's usually where you'll run into a challenge.
You can get 30 or 40-year fixed rate debt with Convoy Home Loans right now
Yes.
with a DSCR loan up
Yes.
to 8 units. So normally it doesn't go over 4 units, but they've got a product right now up to 8 units.
The only challenge that you'll see there is you will see that on the DSCR loans, you're paying probably 2 points at closing, which is 1% of the 1 or 2% of the deal. So if it's a $600,000 deal, you're going to pay 12 points in closing costs. And then you're probably paying a point to a point and a half higher than what debt you could get from a bank or like a Rocket Mortgage or something like that. So the DSCR loan is absolutely the way to go, but you're going to have to bake in some pretty big numbers into making that work. And that sometimes can blow up the deal. Keith Hager hit that like button. Thank you. Let's see. Corey B have been using keys for managing entry for tenant on my other property. What a pain. What type of keyless locks do you guys recommend? Dion. There you go. Those are them. So
I'm putting in 2, 3, 4, 5 of these over
Yeah,
the next
baby.
week at the new purchase. These are the ones Matt recommended. Normally I use Schlag coated locks. In 13 years, I've had 2 issues with them ever. 2 that failed. One failed like when I was putting it in, so it came messed up, and the other one is failing now. So I think that's a good track record. I'm happy with them, but they were $109, and I would look for sales whenever they went on sale for $89. I'd buy like 10 of them.
Yeah.
Well, these were, I think, $50.
yeah, $50.
$54 or something like that.
Yep.
So I'm going to try them. This is based on Matt's recommendation. He's had good luck with them, and these
Love
are Defiant touchpad deadbolts. What I like about these specifically is I don't do short-term rentals, so I don't want Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi kills batteries. They'll last a few months. My batteries, I have one lock where the battery, I'm over 3 years now in there just to see. I want to see how long it lasts on a door that's used constantly. My test will be how long do the batteries last. I usually put in my leases that the tenants have to exchange the lock once a year. And I do it on more than one exterior door, right? So at least 2, so that I've never had a tenant lockout. Because if one of the locks does fail, they have another way into the building, and no keys are needed. They do come with keys. You can store the keys, but this lets you give codes for handyman, contractors, tenants. You can delete codes when you want to. You can have a master code for yourself. So
You can also do temp codes where it's a one-time use, which I love.
that's what Hemline is doing now on what are called self-guided tours. When you have a property that you have camera systems in place, like a Ring system or whatever, but you have the locks with a temp code where they get one code. You can send a code to the tenant that's going to go and look at the property to see if they want it. I haven't used that part of the system yet, but it was a interesting twist.
Yeah, I don't know that I love that, especially in states where there's a squatter issue.
Well, you have a camera. They have to establish residence. You just call the cops in 20 minutes and say they're still in there. They don't live there. Get them out.
The only question is what is that? So yes, but what's the barrier of entry for that, right? Like if it was more premeditated, where they figured out something that they could get from mail there within 3 or 4 days, right? That's my only thought. I don't know squatters' rights that well because in my state, it's not a thing. You're in that property and I show up and it's my property. I've got 15 friends, but I don't know what the rules are around that. My only concern is you have no idea who you're saying yes to.
Right, but that's a code to a lock.
Sure.
If a lock is going to keep someone out, that's a pretty terrible squatter.
Yeah, true. I mean, I think, I would think I'm interested to see, I'm skeptical, but I'm interested to see what their rates are of an issue.
So that's what we were talking about. I have the video coming out next Thursday. 23,000 tenants. That are not all using this system. So she's collecting the data on how many incidents there have been. And I'm looking forward to that same data too, because I have an opinion, but it doesn't mean anything until it's been tested.
100%. That's exactly right. That's why I'm wondering is, do they have an issue? And if they do have an issue, do they have it in a specific area? Millennial Mike, I know you got to go. Thanks for coming and hanging out.
It's been fun. It's been real. I did totally forget to tell you the update that I am going to start an Airbnb. So we'll have to talk about that later.
Perfect. Why wouldn't you say that for the last minute of a segment?
Wait, the last 30 seconds.
Just saying, you guys get a little tease. I'm going to start an Airbnb. I'm going to document the entire process. I got a buddy who's doing one only about a half a mile from me, and he makes absolutely killer numbers. So yeah, that'll be fun. He was convincing, friends with me and Dion. But yeah, guys, I got to get to work here in the next like 15 minutes. I got to sign in. So I'm going to go to the range and have some fun. I will see you later.
Sounds good. See you, pal. I want to save the thank you for Mike now that he's gone. Thanks, Mike, Lumberjack, and Dion. Great info as always. I can't figure out how to remove the anonymous in YouTube. Still need to figure that out. I don't know how to do that either. So good luck to you. Look up here in Lake Havasu. If we have homeless people, the police pick them up and drop them off in Phoenix.
Ruston, Washington does the same thing. They take them. It's an indigency law. They come up and ask you to show a certain ability to pay for bus fare or something. And if you can't, they just arrest you, take you to Tacoma.
It's awesome. I freaking love it. So good. Rob in Gary. Yeah. No, trust me on this. You don't want to do that in Gary because in Gary, I'm pretty sure the homeless to police ratio is probably triple digits to 1 is my guess. Or I don't know. They considered homeless if they're living in an abandoned building. I mean, technically, I guess, right? But anyway, let's see. I can stay another 14 minutes. Dion, I know that I'm only interrupting Diablo 4 or nap time. So
actually, I have an interview in 14 minutes with one of the employees who works at the company that does Diablo 4. And I'm going to pick on him because any nerds watching, gamers, whatever you want to call yourself, that I'm a nerd. Diablo 4, it's okay. It's one of the other, it's another version of Diablo. It's not my favorite type of game to play. But I have a serious critique with the game that's very frustrating. So I'm going to be talking to my friend Tony, probably off camera, because he's actually going to be talking about some stuff that matters for real estate.
Nice. Seer Guru, always great. Thanks, Seer Guru. Rob, no, Mike is doing an Airbnb in Gary. Yeah.
No, I think his Airbnb is here in Washington. Yeah,
definitely not. What would you even charge for a night in Gary? $13?
2 tacos.
Yeah. Just mail them to me. Look up ABB in great recreational town, nurses, doctors, internships too. Yeah, Ruston is beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of, there is so much demand for rentals, period. Short-term, long-term, professional, you name it. There's a ton of demand. I work with a company that does H-1B visas. The first year they started with me, they had 8. Now they have 50. Guess what? They need housing for all those people. That's been a fantastic relationship for me with that company because if I ever have a problem with a tenant, I call them and I say, hey, this guy's being a problem. And so it's been absolutely fantastic. Seer Guru can talk about owner carry pros and cons, how to enter the market. Yeah, I would love to do that. That sounds like fun. But yeah, I think it's amazing to me, the talk of crash when look at Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist for a unit, and then look 2 weeks later and see how many of those units are still available. Like 1 out of 30 might still be available. And that's maybe because it's super overpriced or it's got some, there's an axe murderer in the neighborhood. Like those are typically the things. But it's just, it's crazy. There is still such an unbelievable shortage. It's so much of a shortage that there's 2 streets where I am that are always what we call discount streets. They're like McKinley for Dion, where they're just like, it's a war zone. And for us in New Hampshire, in that area, that just means that there was a shooting there 4 years ago. But that's the kind of stuff that is now trading still at market because people want to get in so badly. Anna K, good morning. Yay, I'm so glad you found this live. Anna K was one of those phenomenal students in the Lumberjack Landlord Bootcamp. It was so fun to have her. Dividend Dave was the same. Phil Nealand, I think, who also made appearance. He was the same in that course. It was fun. Do you ever get sad, Dion, when you end a boot camp, like with the students that you have? Because that's how I felt. I felt kind of sad. We finished our 12 weeks and it was awesome.
But I just started another month.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, everybody, let's just do this again.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
easier that way.
yeah, I loved it. I loved it. So it was pretty cool. Dion, any closing thoughts, my friend?
So it's a random live stream on a Friday.
It is.
People could have chose to listen to music at work. They could have watched cat videos. Could have watched Crash Bros. Something even less productive. But sometimes hearing this information or hearing somebody else ask a question that sparks a train of thought that can lead to financial freedom
Yes.
and gets you all of the time that you want in the future for cat videos and music and Crash Bros videos, to laugh at all the people saying don't buy because you'll be the person who did buy and never have to work again.
True words have never been spoken. I think people need to just, I mean, listen, if you want other people's lives, do what they did. And some people get lucky. Some people get stuck in a job that pays a lot of money that is horrible. Pursue things that you enjoy. If this is something that gets your blood flowing, gets you, entertained, and something that you're hanging out with a bunch of other people that make you better, make you think, make you consider, get you better at the craft, help you become elite at something. I just don't know if there's anything that's much better than that. I mean, thankfully for me, it's real estate. I'd do it if it were, some other things as well, but it's real estate. And so that's where, we get to talk about this stuff. I don't know, 4 or 5 hours a week or 3 or 4 hours a week. It's a lot of fun. Andy Borch, thanks for everything you guys do. Hope you don't mind me considering you both and Zuber my rich dads. Not at all. Not at all. However you need to think of me to get you to elite as a landlord, I'm good with that. Look up, Amadeus calls it E squared. Now you offer that you got Ching Ching. Oh, thanks. One is a genius and the other one is insane. Y'all fun, digital simpatico. Thanks. Look up. Let's see. I had a friend who worked at Blizzard on StarCraft. We gave him crap for every problem he didn't work on. That's what good friends do. I have friends that are developers for software companies. And I'm just like, and I'll look up how many bugs they had in their software the last time it was released. And I'm like, so you couldn't get to those 7,000, eh? They're like, shut up.
So here's my critique of Diablo 4. We're wrapping up the video. We're walking
Yeah.
away. This is not real estate. This is the people who just want to hear something stupid. So this is the weirdest critique ever because Diablo's had like a flawless launch. Like it's
Agreed.
gone great. So
Agreed.
Tony's doing his job. So I can't pick on him on the things that don't work. But when you play games like Diablo, you're playing an avatar, right? You're playing a character. And some guys want to play the big muscle-bound guy. Some people want to play female character. The female characters in Diablo 4, there's an entire class of them. They used your body structure to make these female characters. It is like you, clean shaven.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm picking on him for. That was what they could come up with to make a gaming female character.
Does that mean so are you like calling them fat?
I'm doing it without doing that. It's probably more like 2 of you, but yeah, it's still.
So all the women in the game are rotund.
They look like the characters from WALL-E.
Oh, that's quality.
This shallow moment brought to you by.
That's awesome. Well, I definitely need to thank you all for attending now, based on what Dion just said. But Dion, have fun with your Diablo 4 interview. Everyone, we always try and create great content for you. Come check us out, hang out with us. Sunday live streams that I do, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then Dion does Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific. And then he also does one for his course on Saturdays, right?
Saturdays at noon. Yep.
Saturdays at noon. So,
And
and
that's a Zoom one where we go deep into each portfolio.
yeah, we are doing, now that the boot camp is over, we're doing some special events in my course. where everybody, not just boot campers, but everybody in the course is going to get to participate in those. It's part of the course cost. It's nothing that we charge extra. We just want to always be delivering value to folks in the course. And while we do sessions, we do breaks in between our boot camps. We then spend that time to do stuff for folks in the class where they get to, we have a roofer, a sheetrock company, an attorney, another attorney, a banker, a broker, a big broker does a lot of volume. We'll put all that stuff in there. So it's a good time. But Dion, good luck, my friend. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Everyone, have a fantastic day. Subscribe, make sure you hit the like button, and you know what? Have a great Father's Day weekend. If you're a father, have a father, but have a fantastic Father's Day weekend. Take care, everybody.
Ciao. I was going to do a vasectomy joke there at the end.